Discover the heartwarming moment when my sister's unexpected stay revealed life-changing truths. Sarah stood at the threshold of her home, heart racing as she processed the sight of her estranged sister, Beth, on her doorstep. Years of silence melted away, and time seemed to pause. How could this chaotic presence disrupt the fragile routine Sarah had spent years building? The door creaked open, and as she forced a smile, a mix of surprise and resentment churned inside her. "Beth," she whispered, as if daring herself to believe. Before she knew it, their old rivalry rekindled with spark and tension. While Sarah was the epitome of stability, working 2 jobs and parenting alone, Beth was the wild flame who dared to be unconventional. A swirl of conflicting emotions bubbled like a pot about to boil over. Would she allow herself to let her sister back in? Just then, Ethan bounded into the hallway, his smile innocent and unaware of the complexity brewing between the two women. Instantly, Sarah's heart softened at the sight of her son, a reminder of her steadfast purpose. As the clock ticked closer to Sarah's second job, their strained reunion laced with childhood memories resurfaced. Camaraderie and sibling love were overshadowed by years of competition, the unsaid expectations glowing like neon signs in the back of her mind. Was she being judged for her choices? Those endless neighborhood block parties felt like a parade of polished lives, everything she wished for just out of reach. She yearned for recognition, yet when she glanced at her neighbors, adorned in smiles and effortless grace, that feeling morphed into a pit of inadequacy. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, the neighborhood's annual block party became the backdrop to their simmering emotions. Sarah felt invisible, blending into the strings of lights and laughter, while Beth stood in the spotlight, the life of the gathering with her storytelling and artistic flair. The tension in Sarah's chest tightened with each cheerful laugh echoing in overheard gossip. She couldn't help but feel the shadows of envy dance within, feeling like the ghost of a dream yet to be fulfilled. A sudden crisis hit, thrusting them into an unexpected storm. The cost of a car repair compounded with overdue bills was more than a financial strain. The argument erupted unexpectedly, a clash of ideals and principles, of dreams and realities. Old resentments bubbled at the surface, with biting words exchanged that reminded them of their family's disapproval and their paths diverging like 2 roads into the woods. Tears blurred Sarah's vision as raw truths spilled out, words heavy with regret. A sigh of vulnerability hung in the air, and for a moment, they resembled 2 lost souls navigating the maze of life together. In the midst of their revelations, a knock on the door shattered the intense moment, sending ripples of uncertainty through their tentative bond. Would they overcome this wave of chaos together, or would the unresolved wounds of their upbringing separate them once more? As the door swung open to reveal yet another storm in their lives, Sarah and Beth were left suspended, teetering on the edge of transformation, their futures hanging in the balance. The door creaked open, revealing a man in a uniform. A familiar face, one they both recognized but had hoped to avoid. Officer Jensen stood there, his expression serious, almost grave. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, taking a step back, scanning the scene. Sarah held her breath, her heart pounding like a drum. It was never good news when law enforcement showed up. She exchanged a quick glance with Beth, the moment thick with apprehension. They had barely managed to navigate through their own crises. Did they really need someone else to add to the chaos? "Yeah, we're fine," Sarah replied, forcing a smile despite the palpable tension laced in her voice. She would not let anyone see how much this moment rattled her. Officer Jensen remained unconvinced. "I was passing by and thought I heard a disturbance." "Are you sure everything's okay? I can come back later if you." This might be the only chance for a reprieve from the storm brewing between the sisters. "No, really. Just a miscommunication." There was something almost desperate in Sarah's voice. She wasn't trying to hide their family matters from the world anymore. She simply didn't want anyone else to know how fractured they had become. As Officer Jensen eyed Beth, who stood there looking out of place and still caught in the whirlwind of emotions, he softened. Okay, just keeping an eye out. You never know. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. With that, he turned away, leaving the sisters in a heavy silence. Once the door clicked shut, Sarah felt the weight of unspoken words descend upon them again. What a great way to put a damper on the evening, Beth finally said, her tone a mix of sarcasm and uncertainty. Maybe we can use this quiet to talk, Sarah suggested, her heart racing. The air in the room felt thick and charged, an unspoken challenge hanging above them. Beth sighed, sitting on the edge of the couch, her movements deliberate. You mean argue again? Because that's all we've done since I got here. Sarah winced. She didn't want to fight, but she also didn't want to gloss over the cracks in their lives. It's just, everything is building up. The money issues, your choices, my choices. Beth ran a hand through her hair, exasperated. What if I told you that I feel just as lost as you do? You think I'm the wild one, but I'm struggling too. Maybe we both need to recognize the fear that's been driving us. The words landed with surprising force. Sarah opened her mouth to respond but faltered. Fear. Yes, that was the common thread stitching their pasts together. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, the list went on. You think you know me, Beth continued softly, but I haven't been living the fairy tale either. The sincerity in her voice felt like a life raft thrown into turbulent waters. Just as the air began to clear, a small voice interrupted, pulling them both back into reality. Ethan, sensing the charged atmosphere, appeared at the doorway, his wide eyes flicking between the sisters. Can I watch TV now? Both women's tension melted for a brief moment. Sarah chuckled lightly, ruffling Ethan's hair. Sure, buddy. Just give us a minute, okay? As Ethan scampered off, Sarah looked back at Beth, who seemed to be a mix of relief and anxiety. We have to figure this out together beyond arguing. I don't want Ethan to see us like this. He needs us both. Beth nodded, her eyes glimmering with the possibility of reconciliation. Yeah, I know. But where do we start? The question hung between them, echoing with both uncertainty and hopeful determination. They had a long way to go, but this was a fragile first step toward healing. And just when clarity felt within reach, a troubling thought flickered in Sarah's mind. What if the truth they discovered together was more than they could handle? Would it bring them closer, or would it threaten to tear them apart all over again? The silence stretched out, both a comfort and a struggle. Sarah could feel the weight of Beth's gaze, full of questions they both weren't ready to face. It was easier to stay on the surface, to toss around familiar grievances rather than dive into the deep end of emotions that would require active work to untangle. Maybe we should just start with something small, Sarah said, searching for a lifeline. Like, what do you want out of all this? From us, I mean. Beth looked thoughtful for a moment. I just want us to be okay again. Maybe, like how we used to be. When we could laugh about nothing and everything all at once. It was a nostalgic plea, one that tugged at Sarah's heart. She remembered the laughter echoing through their childhood home, their silly inside jokes that made them feel like a world unto themselves. But time had shifted them, changed their familiarity into something thorny and complicated. Those times feel so far away, Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I know, Beth replied, her brow furrowing. But what if we could get back there? I mean, we've got a lot to figure out, but it doesn't have to be just chaos and anger. She looked almost hopeful, and that stirred something in Sarah, an ember of possibility. An image sketched itself in her mind, of them laughing together, finding joy amidst the storm raging around them. But with the dark clouds of life still looming, Sarah wondered if they could ever really return to that simplicity. What about Ethan? Sarah's question cut through the still air. He deserves a family that knows how to be together. We owe him a good environment. Right. Beth exclaimed, leaning forward. What if we focus on him first? Find ways to be the adults he needs us to be? That concept lingered like a breath of fresh air. They could work together, step by step, for Ethan's sake. Sarah could see how it might be an anchor, something to hold onto when their own worries threatened to pull them apart. Emily's voice resonated from the other room, laughter echoing into the hallway as she settled in front of the television. It was a simple sound, but it brought a smile to them both. Maybe we can start there? Beth suggested, a challenging grin crossing her lips. A movie night? Something easy to bring us back in sync. Sounds perfect, Sarah replied, a warmth blooming in her chest. We could even make popcorn. They pulled themselves up from the couch, tentative but excited. The thought of a simple movie night sparked a hope within them, a chance to share laughter, to weave their frayed connections back together one small piece at a time. As they made their way into the kitchen, the tension from earlier began to fade, replaced by the hum of domesticity. Beth began rummaging through cabinets, and Sarah found herself smiling at their familiar routine. But just as the moment felt right, Beth's phone buzzed loudly, slicing through the cozy warmth they were trying to build. Beth glanced at the screen, her expression shifting rapidly. "It's Mom," she murmured, her voice tinged with a sudden weight. "Take it," Sarah urged, her heart thumping hard at the unforeseen turn. "We can wait." Beth hesitated, the phone hovering before her like a lifeline thrown out to sea. What if it's not good news? "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," Sarah said, her heart racing. There was a challenge in the air again, yet it felt different now, charged with potential rather than the destruction that once dominated their exchanges. Beth nodded slowly. Picking up the phone, she took a deep breath before answering. The atmosphere thickened once more as Sarah held her breath, caught between anticipation and trepidation. What news would shatter their fragile peace? Would this call bring them closer, or would it plunge them back into old wounds they thought were healing? Beth pressed the phone to her ear, her expression unreadable. The silence felt endless. Sarah's heart raced as she watched Beth's face shift from concern to something else. Was it dread? A flicker of anger? "Mom?" Beth said, her voice quavering slightly. Sarah shifted her weight from one foot to the other, the air thick with tension. She could hear the muffled voice echoing from the other end. Beth nodded slowly, trying to absorb whatever message was coming through. As she listened, Sarah could see her brows furrow deeper, and each second felt like an eternity. "Okay, I understand." Beth's voice came out steady, but the glimmer of something vulnerable lay beneath. Sarah tried to catch words through the static barrier that separated them, but only fragments began to fill the air around her. "What does that mean, Mom?" The line crackled, and then Beth's voice came again, firm and edged with emotion. "We'll figure it out. Just please, tell me more." After a moment, something broke in Beth's expression. A small gasp escaped her lips before she leaned heavily against the countertop. Sarah took a step closer. She could feel anxiety mixing with bewilderment. "Beth," she murmured, concern wrapping around her like a cloak. "What is going on?" Beth rubbed her fingers along the edge of the counter, catching her breath as she turned her eyes towards Sarah, luminous yet haunted. "Ethan's grandmother, she's not doing well. The doctor says it's serious." A wave of dread washed over Sarah, hitting her square in the chest. Does Ethan know?" "No, not yet. Mom thinks it should be us who tell him." The color drained from Beth's face. "What do we say?" To a 7-year-old, the thought of Ethan crying, of being crushed under the weight of what seemed like such an adult issue, made Sarah's heart ache. "We'll find a way. Together." Her voice steadied, surprising herself with the strength she felt in that moment. Beth's trembling hand fell to her side, her phone clattering against the counter. "I can't do this." "Of course you can. We can rely on each other. Remember?" Sarah reached for Beth's hand, intertwining their fingers. It felt like a connection hadn't been forged in a long time. Beth looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You think so?" "I know so," Sarah affirmed, squeezing Beth's hand. "We'll handle this like we promised, for Ethan's sake. We're stronger together." Their shared strength flickered in the space between them, but at that moment, they both knew the real struggle lay ahead. The idea of bringing news that would shake Ethan's world felt daunting, but the thought of doing it alone felt worse. They moved back to the living room, where the laughter of Emily still echoed faintly. But now there was a heaviness that lingered in the air, an impending storm just beyond their doorstep. As they settled on the couch, the comforting weight of the blanket smoothed over them like a safety net. Emily looked up from the screen, her eyes bright, a child oblivious to the turning tides of the lives around her. "If they want popcorn, we have to serve it," Sarah murmured softly, forcing a smile to mask their inner turmoil. "Let us start the evening together before the talk." Beth nodded, her face still drawn but fighting to find hope. Yet, as they both grabbed the popcorn bowl, Sarah felt the uncertainty hanging like a cloud. What if they couldn't make it through this? Would the laughter of their shared childhood become just a whisper of what once was? Deep down, Sarah knew they had a choice to make. As she met Beth's gaze, the question lingered in the air: how would they tell Ethan the truth without breaking him? Would they gather enough strength to guide each other through the storm? Or would the winds of change rip them apart again? Beth clutched the popcorn bowl tightly, her knuckles pale against the bright plastic. She could feel the pressure in her chest as they settled into the couch, the familiar spots suddenly feeling so foreign. Emily continued to giggle, engrossed in the movie, blissfully unaware of the weighty cloud hovering over the others. "Ethan loves popcorn," Sarah said, a faint smile breaking through her worry as she watched her daughter. It was a good distraction, a moment of normalcy in the chaos threatening to engulf them. "Yeah, he does," Beth replied softly, her gaze shifting from the flickering screen back to Sarah. "But can you imagine his face when we drop this bomb on him?" The joke was weak, the kind that spilled from lips desperate to lighten the load, yet both women knew they were walking a tightrope. "What if we frame it differently?" Sarah suggested, trying to find a plausible escape from the painfully adult conversation lurking ahead. "We could talk about how people get older and sometimes they need help." "Help?" Beth raised her eyebrows, unsure of that approach. "Sounds like we're talking about a new babysitter, not saying goodbye to someone." "Okay, maybe not that," Sarah admitted, biting her lip as concern clouded her brow. "But we need to be honest, as gentle as we can be. He deserves that, even if it's hard." Gradually, they fell into silence, the laughter from the TV feeling distant. The tension between them shifted from moment to moment, sometimes close to breaking but still held together by their connection. "Do you remember when Grandma passed away?" Beth said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were so young, but I remember how our parents tried to explain it. I was scared, but I think they just shared the honesty of it, you know?" "Yeah, I remember that rough summer," Sarah said, recalling that heavy reality, a whirlwind of emotions for a child to bear. "But we made it through, somehow. Ethan will too." The flicker of hope in her voice resonated like a lifeline, sparking something inside Beth. The comfort of sisterhood was there, urging her to hold on to the moments that mattered. "And we'll do it together this time." "We really will," she said, her voice steadier now. "Definitely," Sarah affirmed. "It might hurt, but we'll be stronger for it." "I believe that." As if summoned by fate, Ethan came bounding into the living room, his face aglow with joy that could only belong to a child. "Can I have some popcorn?" he chirped, eyes wide and innocent. "Of course," Sarah responded, reaching for a handful. She handed it to him, grounding herself in the warmth of that familiar smile. Ethan plopped down beside Beth, peering at the screen with an excitement that felt contagious. "What are you two whispering about?" he asked, already wheedling his way into their world of secrets. "Just mom stuff," Beth replied, forcing her tone to remain breezy, though her heart tightened at the thought of what loomed ahead. "You know, your favorite popcorn?" Ethan giggled, blissfully ignorant to the storm that was beginning to brew within the adults surrounding him, yet even in that light moment, a shadow lurked. With each crunch of popcorn that echoed in the room, the question loomed still: when would be the right time to break the news? Would humor continue to hold up the weight of reality, or would fate find a way to pull away the curtain first? "Hey, can we do something fun tonight? Like make a fort?" Ethan suggested, his enthusiasm unabated. Beth's heart fluttered with the simplicity of the idea. "Yeah, a fort could be fun," she nodded. But in her mind, the fort felt like a temporary barrier against the inevitable. As they gathered cushions and throws, Sarah shared a glance with Beth, a silent understanding lingering between them. They would have to address what was coming, but for now, it was okay to embrace this moment of lightness. But what if the fun would only delay the inevitable heartbreak? And what if the fort they were building could not shield them from the discussions they had to face? As cushions piled high around them, Ethan squealed with delight, his laughter echoing off the walls, filling the room with a lightness that briefly pushed aside the heavy thoughts clouding Beth and Sarah's minds. The bright colors of their plaid throws twinkled in the soft light, creating a sanctuary against the uncertainties outside. Got to protect ourselves from the movie monsters, Ethan declared, laughing as he threw a pillow over his head for extra drama. Sarah smiled at her son. The best fort builders in the world are in this room. She beamed, but her eyes flickered to Beth, searching for a glimpse of the strength they would need in the days ahead. Once the fort was constructed, they nestled inside, the ambience shifted, and laughter bubbled over. Emily crawled in, her eyes wide, holding her own stash of popcorn. "Are we having a popcorn party?" she asked, her excitement contagious. "Absolutely. No movie monsters allowed in here," Ethan retorted, causing all of them to burst into fits of giggles once more. But as the laughter faded, a gentle seriousness settled in. The screen flickered in the background, but the family's attention was firmly on one another, momentarily forgetting the impending reality awaiting them outside the cozy fabric walls. "Tell us a story, Aunt Beth," Emily prompted, her gaze sparkling in delight. Beth hesitated. Stories were sacred, full of magic and nostalgia, but today felt different. "All right, once upon a time, there were two brave sisters, who always had each other's back." As Beth spun her tale, she wove threads of adventure and bravery, challenges met with resilience. Yet deep down, her heart twisted. She realized the stories she told now would only become a fragile barrier against the truth that needed sharing. In the end, they built the strongest fort of all, one made of love and trust, Beth concluded, her voice a little shaky. "See? We can do anything." Ethan beamed, his cheeks flushed with the thrill of stories and popcorn. "Even if the monsters come." The words sliced through Beth like a knife. Ethan didn't even know the real monsters lurking, the ones they couldn't see, but would have to face. Before she could voice her thoughts, Sarah chimed in, her voice steadier than Beth felt. "And together, we'll be stronger than any monsters that show up." But in her heart, Beth felt a swell of doubt. Would that tart truth truly bring strength? Or would it unravel the joy they had built up in the fort of laughter? Moments drifted by like popcorn floating through the air, fun seemingly as endless as the clouds outside. Yet as the flickering movie cast shadows upon their faces, Sarah and Beth exchanged cautious glances. Each woman carried the weight of what needed to be said, a burden heavy with unspoken fears. Finally, Ethan crawled out of the fort, popping his head out with gleaming eyes. "What's the next movie? I want to see something awesome." "I think." Sarah hesitated, wanting to let the moment breathe before reality seeped back in. "I think we should finish our popcorn party first." Their laughter resumed as Beth rejoined them, but deep inside, her heart raced. The laughter felt like it was building a dam to hold back the tide of emotions crashing against them. And yet, Beth couldn't help but wonder, in the back of her mind, would the night's joy be enough to carry them through the storm waiting just beyond the walls of their makeshift sanctuary? As the movie's shadows flickered, she felt the weight of unspoken truths pressing on her chest. So when would they share the heavy words that threatened to shatter their fort? Would it be tonight, or would they let the fleeting laughter carry them, just a little longer? Ethan wriggled back into the fort, clutching a handful of popcorn, and the atmosphere shifted again. The shadows on the wall danced along with their laughter, but Beth could feel the unspoken words hovering like storm clouds, ready to burst. She wanted nothing more than to keep this moment alive, to freeze it in time where happiness reigned, untouched by reality. From her corner of the fort, Sarah gave Beth a small, encouraging nod. For Sarah, this was the safest place. But Beth felt the barriers closing in, squeezing her heart tighter. She needed to understand how to balance the joy of their current moments with the weight of the truth that awaited. "All right, how about we tell our own stories? Sarah suggested, shifting the mood again, her voice warm and inviting. Let us share something that makes us feel brave or strong. Ethan's eyes lit up. I'll go first. He sat tall, as if he were the hero of his own story. Once, I found a dragon in my backyard. The room erupted with laughter, and for a brief moment, Beth felt herself loosen. Ethan continued with exaggerated gestures, describing how he bravely faced the mythical beast, complete with flames and treasure. Then, I made him my friend. He concluded, puffing out his chest with pride. Of course. Because what dragon could resist your charm? Emily chimed in, her eyes twinkling. All right, Emily, your turn. Beth said, trying to keep the light-hearted energy growing, though shadows still lingered at the edges of her mind. Emily took a moment, her brow furrowing in thought. Okay. I once found a treasure map in my room. She said, the excitement inching back into her voice. I followed it and found my favorite sparkly rocks. That's a treasure for sure. Ethan cheered, and Beth couldn't help but smile at the innocence woven in their tales. Each story pulled them deeper into their imaginations, yet with each passing moment, Beth felt her heart push against the weight of truth that tangled within her. Finally, it was her turn, and the laughter died down, as if the world were silently urging her to share. Beth inhaled, feeling the air catch in her throat. Okay, I have a story too. Her voice trembled like a tightrope walker. Once, I was too scared to speak up, to find courage, until I realized that I had a family who would support me, no matter what. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. And that made me brave enough to face even the scariest monsters. Ethan's smile faltered for a moment. Are you talking about real monsters, Aunt Beth? His cherubic face reflected worry. Beth swallowed hard. Just the ones that live in our minds, sweetie. Silence fell in the fort, heavy like the weight of a cloud before rain. Beth sensed Sarah's tension beside her. It was a moment that could shatter their cheerful sanctuary, yet it felt necessary. Can we still be brave even if we're scared? Ethan asked, his voice small, cutting through the air like a soft breeze. Of course, buddy, Sarah replied, wrapping her arm around him. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you face it anyway. But Beth's heart raced. Reality pressed closer, demanding to be acknowledged. How could they prepare for the fight ahead when echoes of laughter still rang in their ears? As the flickering movie light painted fearsome creatures upon the fort's inner walls, Beth turned to Sarah. When do we tell them, really tell them, what's going on? A beat passed. The question hung in the air, heavy and tight. What if the truth isn't as scary as we think? Sarah spoke softly, but uncertainty dripped from each word. With that, a tension thickened in the air like unaddressed fears ready to boil over. It was only a matter of time before the truths lurking inside would demand to be set free. Would they have the courage to let go of the laughter and embrace what awaited? When would the fort built of pillows and popcorn be unable to hold back the waves crashing against it? The laughter faded slowly, leaving a thin veil of tension after Beth's poignant words. She could feel the weight of their unspoken fears, mingling with the faint remnants of joy like a delicate thread. Each heartbeat in the fort grew louder, a reminder of what loomed beyond their safety net of cushions and laughter. Oh! I have a story. Ethan suddenly shouted, breaking the silence almost too energetically. He was eager to reignite the spark. One time, I saved a puppy from a big muddy puddle. It was so scared, but I swooped in like a superhero. The energy shifted, and the corners of Beth's mouth turned up instinctively. Ethan's eyes were bright, telltale signs of daring adventure ready to spill forth. She admired his resilience, a youthful spirit that could shine even in uncertain times. Did it get muddy again? Emily asked, laughter creeping back into her tone. Of course. But we gave it a bath hero style. Ethan waved his arms as if he were wielding a heroic sword. The laughter that followed filled the fort and pulled them back, if only for a brief moment, into the sanctuary they had built. Beth glanced at Sarah, who smiled back, eyes twinkling with gratitude for the distraction. But even amidst the joy, Beth felt the knot tightening in her chest. She pulled her knees closer, a silent plea for strength. "All right, your turn, Emily," Sarah said gently, nudging the conversation forward. Emily's brow furrowed, but she rallied. "Okay, I once went to a carnival and I won a giant stuffed bear," she began, her voice infusing with excitement. "It was bigger than me. I named it Mr. Cuddles." Beth watched the joy spread across the kids' faces, wishing it could last forever. The thought of disturbing this moment made her heart ache. "Mr. Cuddles sounds like he could scare away monsters, too," Ethan declared, and they erupted into silly giggles as they imagined the stuffed bear warding off fears lurking in their minds. "You know what?" Emily smiled and looked over at Beth, her eyes gleaming. "Maybe we just need a little bit of magic. Like a magical sparkle in our thoughts?" Beth suggested, her heart warming to the idea. "Exactly. Like magic shields that keep away the bad stuff," Ethan added with a mighty fist pump. Sarah chuckled, "I'd take some of that magic any day." As laughter echoed around them, Beth felt a new wave of warmth spread through the fort, overpowering the worries. Yet, in between the joy and imagination, she sensed that the real truths, the ones they had yet to confront, were hovering there, watching, waiting. "What if we created our own superhero?" Sarah proposed, her eyes meeting Beth's in a silent understanding. "What would they be like?" Ethan jumped in, "They would have the strongest heart. And they wouldn't be scared to tackle anything." Suddenly, Beth's voice broke through. "And they'd remind us that it's okay to feel scared sometimes." Every word felt like a release. Even heroes have fears. A moment of quiet reflection followed, each child processing the thought. "But that's how we grow, right?" Emily said, her small voice breaking the silence. "Facing our fears together." Beth's heart swelled with pride, but a thought gnawed at her. The battle they faced loomed closer, and soon it would be time to let them know. "Can we be brave together?" Ethan asked, his eyes wide and searching. "Oh, sweetie, absolutely," Beth sighed, tears prickling her eyelids. The laughter and comfort they shared felt like a temporary balm against reality, and yet, she couldn't shake the sense that true bravery lay just beyond the fort's fabric walls. As darkness crept in, casting long shadows, Beth turned to face them with renewed determination. "We can be brave together. But we might need to talk about what's really going on soon. Would they have the strength to face the truths ahead, or would the fort walls begin to collapse under the weight of what waited outside?" The fort felt smaller now, the air thicker with the weight of Beth's words. The children exchanged glances, their innocence woven tightly with the fabric of the moment. Ethan's face mirrored a budding concern, while Emily's smile faltered at the edges, no longer carefree. Sarah maintained her gentle warmth, but even she grasped the depth of their collective worries. "Can we tell stories forever?" Ethan asked, his voice just above a whisper, like a lifeline thrown into the murky waters of doubt. Beth's heart twisted. How could she explain that stories might shift from laughter to pain? That real life often went beyond what they could imagine? "Stories will always be there, but sometimes we need to face the real stuff too," she replied gently. "You mean like when the puppy got muddy?" Ethan scrunched his face in confusion. "Sort of, yes." She smiled softly at him. "But some mud is harder to wash away." Emily shifted, clutching Mr. Cuddles closer. "I'm not ready for the muddy stuff," she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. Beth's heart ached, wanting to shield them from every storm ahead. "I know, Em. But you're stronger than you think. You all are." She took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "We all carry our own heaviness. But together, we can lighten that load. I promise." It was a promise laced with uncertainty, but they needed to hear it, to believe it. The kids nodded, though uncertainty lingered in their eyes. Laughter floated back into the air, faltering but present, as they shared tales of imaginary worlds filled with dragons and knights. Hours slipped away, the night deepening. Outside the cocoon, shadows danced, and the temperature dipped. The fort, with all its warmth and laughter, stood as a fragile bulwark against the chill. Beth's heart raced as she felt the building pressure of the truth bubbling beneath the surface, threatening to burst. "Hey, how about we make a real superhero team?" Sarah suggested, leaning in closer, her enthusiasm infectious. "We could have secret powers. Like flying or invisibility. We should have a superpower that doesn't let bad things happen." Ethan exclaimed, his eyes glowing with excitement. The kids' chatter rose in volume, each suggestion more fanciful than the last. But as the story spun out, Beth's heart conflicted with rising sorrow. She wished it could remain this way forever, laughter resonating over the dull murmur of real life. But she knew better. Suddenly, a voice broke into their bubble. "Time to come out, kiddos." It was Beth's sister, Olivia, her silhouette framed by the kitchen light. The moment felt bittersweet. "Can we stay a little longer?" Ethan pleaded, his eyes wide with hope. "We still need our superhero talk," Emily added, clutching Mr. Cuddles tighter, as if he could ward off fears both known and unknown. "I'm sorry, but I think you all need to hear this," Olivia said, glancing at Beth. The gravity in her voice struck home, sending chills down Beth's spine. The kids exchanged worried looks. What could change everything? "I'll be right back," Beth promised them, her heart racing. She turned and stepped away, swallowing hard as she approached Olivia. "What's wrong?" Beth whispered, sensing something pivotal was about to unfold. Olivia hesitated, unsure, her eyes betraying quiet fear. "I think we might need to talk. About everything." The weight of those words hung in the air like storm clouds ready to break, and a wave of uncertainty washed over Beth. Would the truth that awaited them shatter the fragile fortress of light they had built tonight? "Okay," she murmured, her heart pounding. As she turned back toward the fort, the shadows softening the corners, Beth knew the time for bravery had come. She had to find a way to lead them through. Could she, too, be the hero they needed? And what would the truth reveal once they emerged on the other side? The air felt heavy, taut with unspoken truths as Beth returned to the fort. The laughter inside had faded, pockets of silence punctuated by Ethan's distant questions, creating a quiet urgency that echoed in her heart. "All right, guys," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "Things have shifted a bit. We need to talk. Like, really talk." Ethan's eyes widened, confusion written across his face. "About what?" Sarah sat close, her hand brushing against Beth's, a comforting squeeze that sent a wave of warmth through her. "About your grandmother," Beth started, but the words felt trapped in her throat, like they were stuck behind a dam ready to burst. "Is she okay?" Ethan asked, his innocence piercing through the thick tension. "She's not sick, right?" Beth could see the flicker of fear in her son's eyes, and it tugged at her heart. "She's well, she's unwell. The doctors say it's serious and we need to be honest with you." The silence felt suffocating. Emily clutched Mr. Cuddles tightly, her expression falling into a worried frown. "What do you mean?" Sarah took a deep breath, her calm composure shining through. "It might be hard to hear, but sometimes people we love need help, and that's okay. We want to be upfront with you, no secrets." The words hung for a moment, heavy and thick, weaving around them like the blanket fortress. Ethan's small face scrunched with uncertainty, searching for guidance in their eyes. "Help, like in superhero stories?" "Sort of," Beth answered, forcing a smile. "But sometimes, it's more than just a battle or a rescue." The realization sunk in slowly, a soft murmur of understanding creeping into the room. "But we can still help her, right? Can we still see her?" Ethan pressed, a hint of hope masking his fear. "Yes," Sarah affirmed. "We can visit her. Show her how much we care." That flicker of hope sparkled in the air, and Beth felt a small crack in the weight pressing against her chest. "And we can share stories," Beth added, finding strength in their connection. "Just like we've been sharing here." "Do you think she'll remember our superhero ideas?" Ethan asked, and despite the heaviness, laughter trembled at the edges of his voice. "Absolutely." Beth chuckled, just means we need to remind her how loved she is, maybe even create new heroes together. In that moment, the gloom lightened ever so slightly, the tight-lipped fear loosening its hold. Laughter returned, a tentative bubble of joy that warmed them through the chill of reality. But the truth still loomed like fog creeping in from the sea. "She's older now," Emily whispered. "Will she get better?" The question stuck, clawing for answers, but Beth felt her heart open further. "We can't know what will happen. But we can make sure she feels loved through her struggles. We'll be her team." Ethan nodded, clearly uneasy but determined. "I'll be the best superhero. I'll help her feel better." "Yes, you will." Beth cheered, feeling the weight lift a little, the thread of fear loosening as courage filled the gaps. As the children rallied, their laughter bounced off the fort walls. Beth exchanged a glance with Sarah, and in that look, they both found a silent promise. Their bond had shifted, and with it, their ability to face the unknown. "Hey," Sarah said, breaking the playful mood slightly. "How about we give your grandma a call tomorrow? Start with a message full of love." Ethan brightened at the idea. "Yeah. We could even make her a video." Suddenly, the idea for a new adventure flowed through the air. "Exactly. And we could tell her about our imaginary superheroes." Beth chimed in, bursting with excitement. Emily added, "And all our popcorn parties." The energy surged anew, the deflated spirits buoyed back up by creativity and connection. As the night wore on, the reality of what lay before them found its way to the edges, but it didn't dampen the laughter, the aspirations, or the determination. And in the midst of it all, Beth felt the transformation begin, not just within her sisterhood with Sarah but also in her role as a mom, a friend, and a daughter. Before long, the movie lit back onto the screen, enveloping them in warm light, echoing laughter, allowing fleeting moments of magic to fill their fort. And as the credits rolled, Beth mentally braced herself for the next day, feeling a sense of solidarity and strength. She may not know the full outcome, but she knew they would face it together. They were a team, bound by love, finding joy within confusion, and standing, shoulder to shoulder against the storm that it was time to embrace whatever came next with open hearts. Now, don't let this moment pass. You need to subscribe now to our channel for exclusive stories that inspire hope and transformation. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and help us bring more joyful content. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about this ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey unfolding. True fans understand the power of connection, so show your support now.